Hi, this is Taran Conwell from the Undomestic Mom podcast, and you are listening to the Eat Blog Talk podcast.
Hey, food bloggers. Are you ready to accomplish your 2023 goals faster than you ever thought possible? If you are nodding your head yes right now, the Eat Blog Talk Mastermind program might be a great fit for you. We are now accepting applications for 2023, and I will let you in on a little secret. If you sign up before the end of November 2022, you can lock in at the current pricing. Go to eatblogtalk.com/mastermind for more information and to apply. Brittany and Terrence are the awesome blogging duo behind plantpowercouple.com, and here they are talking about how the mastermind program can massively boost your confidence and how this can so positively impact your business.
If you feel isolated, if you feel like one of the main things that's holding you back in business is like your own struggle with believing in yourself and your own struggle with believing that you can do this, I think you need to do it. I think it's the biggest thing that can change the trajectory of your business.
And your mindset.
Yeah. Like, it's not just, yes, you learn these things, but you gain a sense of community and support and just like accountability, and you start to believe in yourself more, and you start to be able to like borrow these other people's belief in yourself so that you can build yourself up while you're getting there.
Hey, food bloggers. Welcome to Eat Blog Talk, the podcast for food bloggers looking for the value and confidence that will move the needle forward in their businesses. This episode is sponsored by Rank IQ. I am your host, Megan Porta, and you are listening to episode number 361. I'm so excited I have Taran Conwell with me today. She is going to talk to us all about hiring a mother's helper so we can carve out more time for blogging. Taran is on a mission to dismantle the watered-down version of self-care in today's motherhood. She takes millennial moms from survival to thrival mode by teaching them to expect more and do less. She helps them create and implement their own restorative self-care routines and find fulfillment outside of motherhood. Taran, I'm super excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
I'm good, Megan. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes, same. I'm super pumped for this chat. But before we get into it, we would love to know what your fun fact is.
So my fun fact, I think this is one that I pulled that I think your listeners might really enjoy. I've actually been asked 3 times to submit content for the Rachel Ray show, yet I have never made it on the show.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like that.
Okay.
It's an honor to be nominated sort of person at this point. But yeah, I basically, when the show first started at this point, I think that was 10 years ago, over 10 years ago, I applied, I sent in a submission to be on the show. And for whatever reason, one of the producers just really enjoyed my personality. And so for 3 or 4, it was over the span of maybe 4 or 5 years, every other year, he would contact me, ask me to make a cooking video. I still am, but a huge fan of Rachel Ray. So he'd be like, we're doing this segment. Can you make this video? And I would make this video back in the day on my flip camera. I look back, the quality was hysterical. But every time, I don't know, I think he adored me, but whatever, I didn't make it past the cutting room floor. And so I never made it, but I am hopeful one day I will still get to be on her shows.
Okay, one day it has to stick, right? I mean, one of these times, the odds are in your favor. I think if they keep saying yes and then no, eventually it'll be a yes.
Yes. And I've got to start submitting things again. For a while, I took a break. I was like, you know what, guys, this is a bit much. I'm going to have to take a break for a bit. But I'm restored again. I want to try it again.
Oh, yes. And let me know when you get on. I'm excited for you. I think it's definitely going to happen. So cool, Taran. And you're right. This is the perfect audience to share that with. I think everyone will be squealing for you. Okay, well, you're here today to talk about just motherhood and how it can be a lot, especially when you're a blogger and you need to carve out more time for all of those blogging tasks that we have. And you have a journey that kind of resulted in something not so great, which is being a burnout mom. I've been there too, Taran. So Can you just talk us through your journey? How did you get to that point?
Sure. Yeah. So currently I have 3 kids. They're 7.5, 5, and 2. So when my oldest was, I think, 3 and my middle was 6 months, I realized I was hitting a wall just in life. Like I was staying home with my kids. I was running a home daycare, but I just wasn't feeling any sort of fulfillment. And in fact, I've always loved to cook. And so I found myself like every night, like my biggest thing was asking my husband, like, how was that dinner? Do you like that recipe? Like, and sometimes like oh yeah, it's good. And I'm like, oh, was it just good? Okay. And we would started having these arguments where he's just like, I love you, but I cannot be the only source of accolades in your life. And like, he didn't even know what he was saying at the time, but it honestly opened up this whole aspect of me that was like, yeah, as a stay-at-home mom, you don't really get this, like, you don't get like not necessarily the gratitude, but you don't get the accolades. You don't get like, this was awesome, thanks for doing that. Your kids are little, they don't realize what you're doing for them. So I decided, a friend of mine had a blog, and I decided I would start a blog, and it started as just like a mom blog, and it transitioned pretty quickly into a food blog. I really loved cooking. I loved meal planning. I loved sharing my recipes. And so I did that while my kids, while I had two kids and, having this home daycare, and grew it. And then got pregnant with my third. And it was all kind of fine and dandy until that. But then the pandemic hit. And honestly, even before the pandemic hit, I was feeling the burnout. It was, I don't have great pregnancies, and I was exhausted. I was, wanting to, like you're in that phase of like, I was getting traction with the blog, and I was like wanting to put all this time into it, but I didn't have the time to put into it because I was with, not only my own kids, like I said, I was running a home daycare. So I had other kids I was taking care of. And I just got to this point where everything, I feel like burnout, it's kind of like everything feels gray. Like nothing is exciting to you. You just don't really have like the zest of life that you normally have. And one of the things I did was hire a mother's helper, and that helped me so much. Then the pandemic hit. I had to, pull back on her for probably a good 9 months, I want to say. But then we got into a groove of like having a pod, and I was able to bring her back into my life. But it was just a lot when you are a mom, especially what I call active motherhood, if your kids are under the age of 8, even if you just have one, still that's under the age of 8, it's a lot. And I think I just was trying to do way too much on my own. And I never wanted to put Undomestic Mom down, because I recognized how much my blog was like really fulfilling me and like something I looked forward to, but it did add like so much more work to my week.
Oh my gosh. What a crazy story, but I think we can all relate to that on some level. As you were talking through it, I was like, yeah, I've been there so many times on different, like the pandemic too, when that hit. It all came around like, oh my goodness, this is a lot. Okay, so your mother's helper idea was so good. I love that you tapped into that and that it actually gave you some relief. How did you come up with the idea of getting a mother's helper?
Yeah, it's so funny because people will have asked me that, like, is this a mainstream idea? I always knew what it was, I think, because I grew up babysitting. So I was a mother's helper back in the day. And I grew up reading the Babysitter Club books.
Yes.
And that's a concept. And it's like the older girls are babysitters, but the two sixth graders are the mother's helpers. So when I became a mom, I was just kind of like, oh yeah, I need to get because I had a babysitter, but we didn't have a ton of room in the budget to pay what a pay a babysitter what they want an hour. And I just talked to a friend about I want to get a younger babysitter who's, charges less, but doesn't, I don't expect them to do as much. They don't have as much experience. And luckily an acquaintance, she's now a friend, but at the time, which is an acquaintance, she's like, oh, I have 2 girls. I'll give you their numbers. They're both at the time were in 7th grade. And she's like, they do that for me all the time. So I think it was people kind of knew what it was. I just don't think the term mother's helper was there. I think it was people just saying young babysitter, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So let's get into the logistics, but first I want to ask you what you think the ROI is on getting a mother's helper. If somebody listening is in the boat that you were, where they're like, oh my gosh, this is too much, I can't do this all. Talk about what the benefits are.
Yeah. So the benefits are especially, in all phases of blogging, but especially in the phase when you are still doing everything yourself. So I know a lot of times we get the advice to hire a VA immediately. And I think that's great. Like, I definitely think that there's a time and a place for a VA. But sometimes that feels a little bit overwhelming of like, how do I find one? And like, how much is that going to cost? And like, what will I have them do? And if you are like me, you're stay at home, maybe you're with your kids a lot, you kind of want just the time to blog. So the ROI, as far as like paying them, my mother's helper, the first mother's helper I ever had was $8 an hour. My kind of pricing for a mother's helper is their grade level per hour plus $1 for each additional child. So I had 2 kids at the time. She was in 7th grade. I paid her $8 an hour. And if you just say you found someone similar situation and maybe you had either like 2 days a week where they came for 2 hours, or maybe one weekend day where they came for 4, and you're spending $32, think of how much you could get done in that like undisturbed amount of time. If you really said to yourself, this is going to be my work time. I mean, I could probably get 2 blog posts done in that time from start to finish, like if I was really focused. And so as you're building up, or maybe all your Pinterest scheduled for the month, or maybe you're going to be, creating reels or whatever sort of social media you're trying to like break into, SEO keyword research, like, there's so many things that like I do with it. And I think that can be a really easy starting point versus, hiring a VA who's, especially a beginning VA who is also affordable, and like asking them to do those tasks. It's almost sometimes like nicer, easier step to just have someone watch your kids so you can do those tasks. So that, I think the ROI on that, like I said, 32, and that's just for 4 hours. You could have them just come 2 hours, whatever you can afford. You don't have to even have it be regular, but for a low amount, you can really pump out a lot of work, I feel like, on your blog.
And when you hire someone to come in, it forces you to be intentional and focused, right? You don't you can't mess around. They're here, you're paying them to be here, so you've got to work. So you sit down and you work.
Absolutely. That's what I was thinking the same thing too, is that like it also for me, like when I typically do hire a mother's helper for like, oh, hey, can you come these 2 days a week? So they are more on a consistent basis. And yeah, those days I've already written down like what I'm planning to get accomplished. Yeah. But yes, when those times when you feel a little bit more lower motivation to work on things, they show up, and I'm in my, what I call my cloffice. It's like a closet office. So I just tuck myself way down here, and yeah, I get to work because you're like, they're here, especially again, like if you're like, yep, I'm paying somebody, this is part of like, I'm taking this, maybe you are taking it from like again, if it depends on what phase you're in of blogging, but like from your like ad revenue or your affiliate income, and you're like, I'm going to set this aside to get more work done. You want it to be productive, and like, it will be the most productive 2 hours of your life.
Oh my gosh. Yes. And also I wanted to mention, if like, I don't have kids under the age of 8 right now, but I could use help too, So I was thinking, instead of mother's helper for people who might have kids who are older and still need a little bit of help, like maybe personal assistant type stuff, like that can fall into this too, right?
Definitely. And like now I currently have a part-time nanny. And so she loves to organize. So she's very much like, Perfect. She said to me, like, if you ever want, pass my name around, because she loves doing that. So like, that's a thing. Now I'm opening up my brain a little bit more, even to just, if I paid someone who, doesn't have the best, again, they're young, but maybe you find a high schooler or a junior high student who loves to organize, or maybe they love social media, like especially young people, like maybe they want to come and like help you create reels or TikToks or write captions. I don't know. I could see them being really good at that. So yeah, if your kids are older, or just, even if you do have older kids, I was talking with my girlfriend over the weekend, her daughter's 10, but she wants that playmate, and so if they're trying to do stuff on the weekends, even still just having a 13-year-old come over just to like play Barbies and play like fun little games. It's like, she doesn't necessarily need to be watched, but she's a kid who needs a lot of engagement. And so it's a nice little, just like, hey, let me pay a 13-year-old $20 to come over maybe, and play with my 10-year-old.
I was just thinking before we started recording, I was telling you about my husband after surgery and how I'm like so stressed out to my max. I'm like, I need a husband's helper.
Yes. Yes.
As you're talking, I'm like, oh, it'd be so nice to have that right now. But he's recovering. He's getting better. It won't be like this forever. But being a mom, it's like you can't I mean, you're in it. You have to continue. You can't just dump your children off somewhere. Like, you have to be a mom.
Exactly.
But getting that help you need can restore you and allow you to do other things with your blog and around your house. It can give you the energy you need. So how does someone go about finding a mother's helper if this is intriguing, if they don't have like a neighbor or something really obvious in front of them?
Yes. Because for a long time, I'd asked around and nobody had a solution for me, or a suggestion rather. And I wish I had done this sooner. What I've done now after, like if my mother's helper, she's gotten older now, she's just my babysitter because she's in high school. But then over the summer, I wanted like a new mother's helper. I put up a post in my local Facebook moms group. So I just, moms of my neighborhood name. Most people I feel like have those groups. And then those people all live near me. And so I put up a post like, hey, I'm looking for someone over the summer. Just these are the hours. I wanted someone to come in the afternoon for a couple hours, a couple days a week. And just kind of put a few things I was looking for as far as like telling them like, hey, I do have 3 kids. I do have a toddler who's in diapers. And since now I do have 3 kids and I still have a toddler, I was looking for someone like in 8th grade. Like I was looking for someone a little bit older, and a ton of moms responded. And they were just like, I have a daughter who would love to do that. I have a daughter. And then I met with them all and chose, and I used several of them, got to know them and their strengths and, what some are good at, others aren't, and what others are good at. It's a very much, each personality does things a little bit better with my kids. And I love that. And yeah, so it was just like this Facebook group that it just was, and that's what I've done since then. And I've also had moms that I've recommended to them. I've never had to do it, but I have recommended to moms, if you don't want to post in a group, you can absolutely just post on your personal page, because you never know if like a girl you went to high school with, her niece might live 2 blocks away from you. And like, you don't really ever talk to her, but like you're friends with her on Facebook and you put this little post up and she messages you, hey, yeah, my niece is 12. She lives 2 blocks away from you. She would love to do this. Let me give you her mom's number. You know what I mean? Like, you never really know that personal network. And on Facebook, especially when you have so many people who, at least I do, that I'm friends with, that I never talk to, but who live near me.
Right. And it's better to go personal, right? Like if you even have a slight connection with somebody, I think that the trust factor there carries so much weight, as opposed to just like, I mean, I'm sure it's fine to interview and hire somebody who you don't know, but I would say go personal if you can. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. No, I've always loved that too. And then, that is kind of the great thing about Facebook is you can see like that person is also friends. You know what I mean? Like I think most of the time, if their profile is not super private. So all the moms, like you could see like, oh yeah, this person and this person. The moms will always come with them to the little interview, like when you're first meeting them, because they're young, they're worried about their kid.
Right.
They don't want to just send their 12, 11, 13-year-old. So you kind of get to like to know the moms. And then, like the girls this last batch of girls, they all lived super close to me, because I was also looking for someone who could either walk or bike to my house, because I didn't want them. I didn't want to have to do drop-offs and pickups, because that kind of like, sometimes that like takes away from like, well, you're here for 2 hours, but the pickup and drop-off adds, my son still naps.
Right.
So that I was looking for. And then the other thing when I met the girls was I just let them know, like, I don't want you to be on your phone. This is just really playtime for my kids.
Good for you. I love that.
That's something, I recommend moms, sometimes you feel like, a lot of these girls are young enough that they don't even have a phone yet, which was nice. The younger ones didn't even have a phone, but I'll just like, hey, this is a play position. I don't expect cleaning. If there is serving lunch, I usually have it ready for them, but it's really just to play with my kids so I can get a break and my kids can have fun. And as long as you say that, like, I know a lot of times people are like, oh, they're just going to be on their phone. But if you say that, they respect it. Like if you don't ever say it, they might be on their phone. Yeah. They might not think you care. Yeah. But I say it and they have all pretty much respected it. And I have a 7.5-year-old now who she will say like they were on their phone the whole time, and then I just don't call them back. It happens a couple of times.
Oh, I love that she's kind of telling on you or telling on them.
Yeah, my kids love when their mother's helper babysitters come over because they love to play with them. So yeah, they will be like, she was on her phone and she wasn't playing with it, so so don't be afraid to like say that as, kind of like put that up as what you're looking for. Cause again, you're paying for this help. It's not like you're asking your sister to watch them or your in-laws, like when you're paying for help, it's nice because you kind of have a little bit more control over what goes on.
Yeah, and setting those boundaries, I mean, in any area of our lives is so
Yes.
important, but especially when it comes to the people who are playing with and watching your kids. That is
Yes.
so smart of you, and I'm good for you for doing that and just like, making it a non-issue up front. Like, we're not going to be on our phones. So establishing that right away.
Exactly. Yeah. I have a lot of friends who are teachers, and so they're always like, yeah, oh, but like preteen or not junior high school, they can't be off their phone. Like, they're always telling me that, like, they can't be off their phone. Like, they're going to be on their phone. And I'm like, I don't know. I think that we can, I think
to be like that.
Yeah. Like, I think that we can expect them to not be. And like I said, I do know they are always on it. But if you just put that, like I said, you just say that, then they will be playing with your kids. And again, I usually have mother's helpers here, not over 4 hours. So it's not a big ask to just, be engaged with the kids. Yeah.
That's not a huge ask. Do you ever deal with these two words that I hate so much, but I think as a mom, we all have experienced this, the mom guilt?
Yes. I deal with mom guilt in lots of ways. Not when it comes to the mother's helper, ironically enough, though, which is funny. I was talking to Aubrey Malik recently, and she was saying the same thing. She's like, well, what about the mom guilt? Because she went from being a teacher to wanting to stay home with her kids. So she went from working mom to then trying to find something to work from home and be home with her kids. And she did, and she was successful at it. So she was saying, I don't want to then have help because I feel like this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to stay home with my kids. And what's funny for me is I had the inverse. I stayed home with my kids. I was stay-at-home mom first, then I started my home daycare. So I never had the guilt of getting help because I was like, oh, I've already been with these kids a lot. They've gotten so much of me. So I think in any capacity, whether you are still currently working outside of the home 100% full time and you're blogging in the other time, your free time, or if you do stay home, work from home, and your kids are home, you deserve time to yourself. Any of those areas, you deserve time to yourself. I do think it was easier for me as a, like I said, stay-at-home mom to just be like, yep, I deserve a break. But even if you're just taking 2 hours, like I said, if, maybe on, I don't know, I would say golf, but I know golf is longer than 2 hours, but say your husband, maybe he golfs every other Saturday or something to that effect. And then you're like, yeah, I'm going to have the mother's helper come while he's gone. And I'm going to do something I want to do. The kids are going to have fun playing with somebody and do crafts and go outside and my husband's going to be golfing. Win, win, win. So I kind of like to look at it like that. Even if you are a full-time working mom, take a couple hours for yourself every week. You're entitled to that, and your kids are still being engaged. That's what I love about it. You're not necessarily just and I use screens. I'm not against screen time, but it's a different feeling than throwing on a movie while you're trying to maybe get an email out or finish up a YouTube video for a brand deal that you have going versus oh, the mother's helper's coming. She's going to go outside with them. They're going to play for 2 hours while I finish this. I think that helps me a lot ease the mom guilt. But yeah, it's definitely there. It is there with, like I said, even super successful bloggers and, online entrepreneurs who have, just feel oh, I should be with my kids this entire time.
Oh my gosh, I've struggled with that so much. I can so relate to all of that because it is a balance. Would you rather have your kids doing something with someone that's engaging them or just sitting and watching a movie? So
right.
Yeah, that's a really good question to ask yourself if you're considering this. I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. Let's take a really quick break to talk about a service I'm really excited to share with you. As a food blogger, you've got so much on your plate. You are busy developing recipes, taking photos, writing posts, managing social media, and all of the other things. You work hard to help your readers live a more delicious life. Even though you enjoy working in your business, I think we all do it because we love it, your to-do list is probably a mile long. You know what I'm talking about. And maybe there are certain things you'd rather not deal with, such as writing. If writing is not your cup of tea, you do not have to go it alone. Heather Eberly is a content writer for food brands. She uses copywriting and marketing techniques to grow your business so you can focus on doing the things you love. If you want to gain Google traction, stand out from the crowd, and take your income to the next level, Heather can help you. Go to eatblogtalk.com/resources to get more information about Heather's services. Again, go to eatblogtalk.com/resources and click on Heather's link. And now let's get back to the episode. And we talked about this a little bit early on, but how has this helped your business to grow? I mean, I know it's given you like intentional, focused time to sit down and work and get things done, but in what other ways has it helped your business?
Yeah, I think it's, for one, it has given us a bit of a validity. I don't know, like, if you ever felt this sort of, again, especially like in the beginning, when I was in the beginning, starting a blog or any sort of content creation that you're doing, and you're not making a ton of money from it, and you feel like it feels like a hobby, but you're working at it and you're trying to make money with it. Sometimes when you hire a little bit of help, that's like the first step to like having this like validity to your business and like a little bit more of an authority. And then feeling that like almost infuses me, it pushes out the imposter syndrome and it almost infuses me with a little bit more like, yes, this is work and I am putting my best, I'm putting my best foot forward into this, and I'm going to dedicate, like, again, real time to things, move the needle forward, versus if you're a mom who's like trying to like get things done on her computer when her kids are playing around her and you feel like, that wasn't necessarily productive because I was all over the place. It's really focused time. And I've just felt that has really been able to get me to do, like, think about my business, think about what I want to do. Sometimes I will just take like an hour of it to just be like, okay, let's do a big brain dump. Let's do a big, like, what do I want to, Q4 is upon us. It's like, let me just take some time to really pull what I want to be doing. And then it just feels like, oh, that was like, I couldn't have done that without this help, because on the weekends, with my husband and everything, like if I don't have a sitter, we're doing family time or this is going on. And then at night, I'm a morning person. So at night I'm exhausted. I mean, some moms who are night owls, they might not have that problem, but like I can't think at night. I can't like project.
Yeah, same.
Goals. Yeah, like make plans. So I think just in that way, when you like have this a little bit of time where you're like, yep, this is work time, it just brings, like I said, that's just like almost authority to who you are as a blogger. And that has helped me tremendously.
And that can get the confidence level boosted, right?
Yes,
like when you start getting the ball rolling like that, you're like, oh, I can do this. This is so cool. And then that just like leads to bigger things, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And I don't know, this might, your listeners might feel this way, but I'm in a couple like paid memberships that I really enjoy. And sometimes those calls are during the day. And like I said, I have a toddler. And so, before my kids were home, but this is the first year my older two are at school full time, but I still have my toddler. And so it is nice when you have, and I should say I found mother's helpers that are homeschooled. So I can still get, like, even when it's not summer, I can still usually get some week time mother's helper. But it's nice, like, okay, I can make that call. Like sometimes there's just like the one Q&A for the month and you really want to make it, and it might just be at 11 a.m. And so I do think that's like another aspect of it that really like can like push you forward, because you're like, okay, like I'm able to come to this like focused, answer the questions, like listen to what people are saying, and not necessarily just like one earbud in while you're trying to like hear what's going on. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That happens sometimes too. It's just nice for me certain times to be able to have that, connection time with adults that I'm not around a child.
Do you look solely for kids who are homeschooled, or how else do you navigate just like daytime school year hours that you need help with?
Yeah, no, over the summer I didn't, because over the summer I was looking for someone, I don't know, I almost go in like little phases. Like over the summer, all my kids are home. So then it's like, okay, well, I'm looking for someone who's going to be able to be here with all of them. Now I am looking for someone who could just be with a toddler. So again, I could have someone a little bit younger. And so in that instance, I have done that before. I haven't done it yet, but I'm thinking about it, doing it again. Like I said, I do have a nanny. She has a flexible schedule with her other family. I'm like the secondary family, so she can usually give me time. But yes, I've thought like, okay, maybe I'll put out another post. And I just say that, like, and when I did it the first time, I was just like, does anyone have any? And I'm looking for daughters because I have older girls, and I just, you might have boys and want to work with a boy, like, you have a preference, but I would just put like, does anyone have a girl who's homeschooled and wants a mother's helper position? And again, I got replies, not as many as when it was summer and I was looking, and I had like, but I don't know if it's also like because of the pandemic, but I see people even more now saying like my daughter's sometimes it's a hybrid. Like I see girls posting if they're looking for like a babysitting gig and they might say like I only go to, typically high school, but like in the morning and then I'm available. Like there's a lot more options I think now since the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And a lot more kids did just decide to be homeschooled after, staying home and doing remote learning, whether it's remote learning or homeschooled. But I think, yeah, if you just put that in your post, I think sometimes we're like, I don't know anyone who's homeschooled. I don't know, but there was a ton of options I shouldn't say a ton. I had plenty and I found some really great girls who came over. So I think, and I'm in the suburbs of Chicago, so I guess it would depend on where you live. But I think for most areas, you could find someone. And one of my friends is, kind of not in the Salt Lake City area, but she's in Utah. And she's like, oh, there's a lot more homeschooled here in my area. So she has like pick of the litter. So I think it depends on where you live. But yeah, just put that in your post. Like, hey, is anyone, anyone's daughter homeschooled? Because typically homeschool kids, like their workload, they don't need to do 7 hours of work.
Yeah.
Like my kids are in school for 7 hours. They're able to get it done. And their moms are like, yeah, this is and I think it's like a learning experience for them too. Like their
it's like part of their curriculum.
Right. Like it's like, oh, they might not have any younger siblings, but like, hey, go learn to be like, take care of a 2-year-old. Like that's a crash course in life right there.
That's real life.
Yes. And their moms typically do like that they're earning a little bit of money because, kids, junior high kids, they want things, they have things they want to buy. So, the fact that they can't just go get a job like at McDonald's or Panera, because they're not old enough yet, I think it's nice that their moms want them to be able to work. It's kind of a win-win for both families.
Oh, absolutely. What sorts of questions do you ask when you invite people over for an interview?
Yeah. So I like to get to know them a little bit. So I usually ask them like what they like to do for fun. They're usually, again, not too many years away from when they played with toys. So I'll usually ask them like, what did you like to play with I'll phrase it like that. Like, what did you like to play with when you were little?
Yeah.
Which that could have been like a year ago,
right.
Like a 6th grader that I had that we met, like, yeah, she still had American Girl dolls that she played with. Aww. So I like to ask them, like what they like to do for fun. If they're into craft, again, I have my older girls, or my girls are the older ones. They love crafts. They love dolls. So that's for me. I'm like, let me suss that out. Like, do you like doing pretend imaginative play? Do you like crafts? Are you cool with Play-Doh? And then like I said, I always ask about the phone, like, are you comfortable? And I phrase it in that way, like, are you comfortable not being on your phone? And then I always bring up diapers because, again, I still have a toddler in diapers. So if that is going to be something for you, I would mention it. I did help a mom find a mother's helper, and she was just like, oh, yeah, I just would change the diaper. Like, she would just say, hey, the baby needs a diaper. Can you change it? My son is in that very clingy phase where, like, if he sees me reemerge, then he doesn't want me to leave.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why I want one who can change diapers. But yeah, so I just like to ask those, whatever you're kind of like things you're really looking for. You might be looking for somebody who is, maybe you are like, I have 2 older boys and they really like to play outside and football and climb and I don't know, whatever, I don't have older boys, so I always forget what they do. But like you might say, hey, do you like doing these things? Or do you like Harry Potter? Do you like Legos? Kind of want to ask for me again about their interests to see, will this be a good fit?
To see if they align. Yeah,
exactly. And it doesn't have to necessarily align perfectly, but sometimes you get someone who's like, oh yeah, I love this and I love that. And then they just click. And the sitters I have now are just so wonderful with my kids. My kids ask like, when's Lizzie coming over? When's Alice?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, because they love to play. We play this fun, and they'll always tell me like the little fun games they make up, So yeah, I just kind of like to get to know them a little bit in the interview and get just a read. I just tell moms like really trust your intuition when you meet somebody, even a 12-year-old. You're gonna get a read on their energy and their, I hate to say sweetness level, but like that's just their overall just vibe.
Kindness.
Yeah, kindness. And just like if they're really into kids and want to do this. And then
or if they're being forced to, you can probably tell.
Yes, exactly. I think that was over the summer. I definitely like met a family who I could tell I think the mom just wanted the daughter to be doing something. And I was like, I don't think she wants to do this.
Yeah.
But then I just like to try them. Then we meet for maybe 20 minutes. It's not long. Again, their mom's here. They kind of just want to like meet me, see my house, make sure, I'm not a creep. And then I let them come over and just do some tryouts. Okay, hey, can you come over? And then of course, I'm paying them, right? Like, so I'm like, hey, can you come these 2 hours on Saturday? And because my kids are a little bit older, again, I can get, my kids read on it. My kids will say, oh, I loved her. We had so much fun. Or, oh no, we didn't like her. What, they can tell me. But yeah, so I don't put too much into the interview. Sometimes people are like, oh, should we have them like play with the kids during the interview? I don't do that. Again, I want to just kind of like get my little read on them because I really do trust my intuition. And then I want to give it a try. Because again, with a mother's helper, you're not leaving your house, you're staying home. The level of error is low. So you can try them out, get to know them. And if your kids are a little bit younger, you can still like keep an eye, be somewhere in the house that you are just kind of like having an ear out, testing the waters, making sure you're comfortable with what's going on. I had a mom who I worked with who was like, yeah, I had one, and I could just tell we weren't in line with like how we did like discipline. And so she's very nice, but like I could just tell how she grew up and how her mom did things was so different. And so she's like, I didn't call her back because I just knew that was going to be kind of like oil and water. So yeah, that's what I like to do. Meet them for a little bit and then just try them out because nothing bad is going to happen when you're home with them anyways.
Right. So you lean on your intuition heavily, it sounds like. And then you also lean on your kids' intuition, which I love. I think that's really smart.
Yes, especially my oldest, because she is a lot like me, and she's very much just like we've had a babysitter once that wasn't even a mother's helper. She was in college, and she was like, oh, please don't have her come back. Like, and nothing bad had really happened, but she was like, I just didn't like the way she was talking to Boo. We call my middle Boo, and she was littler at that. She's like, I don't like the way she was talking to Boo. I'm like, okay. Like she just like very much like, knows.
They know, and you have to listen to that.
Yes.
We had so my oldest son has been through like physical therapy, occupational therapy, all the therapies in his life. And for a stretch, we had people coming to our house, which was really cool. And we had a similar situation where we had a new therapist come over and we kind of like let them play in the basement alone. And when she left, he was like, don't ever have her come back here again.
Yes.
She literally did not say a single word to me. She sat in the corner and I was like, oh my gosh. So you have to listen to them when they have those just bits of intuition. They know.
They do. And even, like I said, 3-year-olds. Now you might sometimes, especially in the beginning, get a little resistance with the separation anxiety. So sometimes you're like, oh, they don't like when the babysitter comes over, they cry. But if you can tuck yourself away, whether it's in your bedroom or your basement, somewhere where they can't see you, and your kids like in the first few minutes stop crying and have a good time, it's good. They will eventually be like, oh, I'm excited, that my babysitter is coming over. But if every time they're like miserable, whether or not the sitter is, doing a good job or just not a good fit, or maybe your kid just isn't ready. Sometimes that is a thing. Some kids just, they're not ready for it, especially if they've been with their parents, like stay home, But yeah, trust that, like sort of like if every time I have someone come over, my kid is miserable, like, okay, this is not the right fit for us.
Yeah. Do you ever have moms who are scared or nervous or worried about sending their kids to someone like into your house?
Yeah, I think like they're definitely kind of, they're coming in, they're kind of just like, okay, let me meet this lady. Let me see like what's up. I'll always have a meeting on the weekends. I always have them meet my husband too, because he might be the one who relieves them, or he might be the, like depending on what's going on. And I always remember when I was younger being the babysitter, like it was always awkward talking to the dad. Like, I don't know, you just never knew. Like, the moms would be like, oh, how was school? How was this? The dads are always like, my husband's pretty talkative. He's like telling the high school babysitter his life story. So it's not, but I like them to meet my husband. I like them to meet several years ago when my youngest brother, we have a big age gap, and he was still in college. And so he lived with us during the summers. And so like that summer I was like, and this is actually my brother, he's in college and he works, he would work during the day, but I said, you might see him. So just being really upfront about like showing them your house and kind of saying who lives there, letting them meet them. I think that like eases their fears a lot, because I do think some moms are probably like, well, I don't know, my kid's too young, because like I said, there's different ages of different maturity levels might want to do this, but sometimes the moms might be like, I don't know if you're ready. So I've definitely encountered that a lot, but I think you come to my house, you see that I'm pretty normal.
Yeah.
My kids are, they're not, I mean, my kids can be a little wild, but like they're not like
they're kids, right?
Yes. because I think sometimes moms are like, will she be able to handle this? And I'm looking for that too. Again, I still have 3 and they're young. So I am looking for like, can you handle this? But yeah, I think the moms, once they get to know you, they come over and meet you, they get used to you, or not used to you, but like they get a good, they're getting an intuition vibe on you too, so
yeah,
they are, it's always good in that case, like I said, that they're coming and meeting you. And these are, again, like with Facebook, you kind of have that, like, oh, I see you're friends with, and I'll say that, like, oh, I saw I'm friends, Facebook, you're friends with Megan Porta. How do you know her? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, get a little connection there.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have this super funny story. So my husband used to be a substitute teacher, and we were looking for just someone to come over and babysit when our boys were younger, because we never got out. And so he asked one of the teachers that he really liked, like, what kid here, give me a handful of kids who would be really good options to come over and watch our boys. And she was like, oh, this girl is great. You have to call her. She's amazing. She's responsible, whatever. So we got her name and number. And my husband, so this is back in the time, like before cell phones were really like rampant.
Right.
So people had like home phones. And so we had her home number. So my husband calls her house and he's like, her dad answers the phone. He's like, hi, is Sam there? And I was like, you can't do that. You have to explain who you are. And he's like, okay, hold on. We still laugh about that.
Yes.
He's like, I can't believe I did that. I just called like a 14-year-old girl's home and just said, hey, is Sam there?
Yes. In the world of texting, but I got a number from somebody and I text a girl, and the mom did call me. She's like, I did want to talk to you. You text my 13. I was like, oh no, I get it. You're right. Like you probably, these aren't like college sitters who are like, out of their house. Like you should probably talk to the mom. But yeah,
I know. It's so funny. Okay. Any other logistical things? Like, I know you talked about money a little bit, the $8 an hour rate, but how do you recommend people pricing out this?
Yeah. So if they do now, like I said, so the mother's helper I had over the summer was in 8th grade. Cause again, my kids are little. I'm like, I need someone a little bit older. So she was in 8th grade and I have 3 kids. So I paid her $10 an hour, that eight for her grade level, and then plus 2 extra kids. So that little formula I like to work with. I think it works really well. And I do say though in the interview, like when they come and meet me, I'm like, okay, hey, like we get to know each other, and I'm like, and the pay is $10 an hour. Are you okay with that? And I let it be a conversation because, well, I'm a woman and I also have daughters. So I want to like empower, this is like their first experience with work. And I want to empower them to like have a voice in the conversation. And I have actually had girls say like, well, I was thinking 11 or I was thinking 12. Like I've had that happen. Yes.
That's amazing.
And so it's exactly what I will say. I was like, good for you. Yeah. I love that you know your worth. And I will say like, that's out of our budget, but I really appreciate that. And I've also had, college girls say that, if they come back with like, oh yeah, this is what I charge. Like I said, I'm in the suburbs of Chicago. So if I end up finding somebody, I get a name from somebody, maybe they're usually in the city, and like you get paid more in the city. And so they might say like, oh, it's my rate. And I will always say that. I'm like, I love that. Like, your worth. I'm so happy with that. That's just out of my budget. So that's how I work it. I go into it knowing what I want to pay an hour. And because, like I said, I have that little formula and I've used it very successfully. 95% of the girls are very much like, oh, that's perfect. Thank you so much. Yes. Like they're very happy with the amount I'm paying them. And then, I always give them a raise every year. Like, again, I like to like let them know, like, I really do appreciate them. So my mother's helper, who was a mother's helper, but now my babysitter, who's been with me for 4 years, like she no longer makes $8 an hour. Now she makes 13. So like, nice. Like over time I get, and I also have another child now.
How do you deal with hours? Do you have girls who are like, I need this number of hours, or are they all pretty flexible, or how does that go usually?
Yeah, that's a good question. I love working with mother's helpers because they are really flexible. They're happy with, if you just want 2 hours occasionally, or if, again, sometimes if you are like, hey, are you available Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3 to 5? And then if they are, then they're like, great. They're never expecting a certain amount of hours. Usually when I work with older babysitters or a nanny and they're like, well, I need to make this many hours for, their more adult bills, then that's kind of where you get like, oh, I feel like I don't need that much. So no, mother's helpers are typically just really flexible. And like I said, it doesn't even have to be consistent. If you just want to try it out, do it occasionally, see how you like it, and just like say I'm looking for somebody and try out a couple people. They're not expecting that like they're going to be called and used, every weekend. And you can just say that too, like I'm just looking for somebody a little bit, here and there. So, they're not really looking for any sort of set hours, which is nice.
Yeah, just being upfront too when you do the interview, just establishing what you're expecting and all of that, I'm sure kind of clears everything.
Yes, exactly. If you're saying, like, again, for me in the past, I've hired mother's helpers to be like, I'm looking for this. And then them saying, yeah, that works with my schedule, or trying it one out. And when I do want someone for a consistent basis, I still do the trial period. So I just say, hey, we're going to give it a couple of weeks, we'll see how it goes. Because I know sometimes people are like, what if I have to fire them? Like, that feels, so you could just say like, can you come this Saturday? Can you come next Saturday? And maybe if it goes well, you say then like, hey, would you like to come every Saturday? Or, so, something to that effect. Yeah, but be upfront.
Firing a 12-year-old or an 8-year-old would be hard.
Yes, right. Like you're like, I don't want to get into that. I'm like, no, I get it. I totally get it.
Is there anything we missed? This is such a great conversation. And I think something that food bloggers with young kids especially will be like, okay, this is doable. This will make my business more manageable and will give me the momentum and the encouragement I need to just keep moving with it. So I want to make sure that we covered everything that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I think we really did cover everything. I think the biggest thing is really to just give it a try. If you were listening and you're like, I don't know if I could ever do that. Like, I love when moms try it and they love it because, again, it's not a ton of money. I'm always like, okay, let me look at those Amazon purchases. Like if I get a mom who's like, I don't know, I can't afford $20, every Saturday or something. I'm like, let me look. But also to know that trying it out, like you don't have to, if you don't like it, you don't like it. It might not be for everybody, but every mom I've worked with has absolutely loved it. So yeah, just give it a try. If you feel like you could use a little bit extra kid-free time in your week, I always just say, just try it out. Nothing can hurt from doing 2 hours.
Such a little investment of money and time and such a game changer if it works out. Yeah.
Yes.
Great conversation. Thank you so much, Taran, for joining me today. It has been such a pleasure to learn from you and to talk to you.
Yes, it has been wonderful to talk to you, Megan. Again, thank you so much for having me on.
Yes, and I like to ask all my guests at the end here if they have either a favorite quote or words of inspiration to share with us. Okay,
yeah, I think one of my favorite quotes that I feel like I invented, but maybe I didn't, is break down, break through. So I just say that when I'm in a hard phase, I'm just like, this is the breakdown and we're going to get to the breakthrough. So like just working through it and just being like, it's not going to be like, I don't like to say it's not going to be like this forever because sometimes that's not helpful, but this whole like, I'm in the breakdown. Now I'm going to get to the breakthrough. And it always happens. Like in any sort of situation, tough situation, argument with your spouse, argument with a friend, you're like, break down. And now we've broken through. So I really like to just keep that top of mind when dealing with any sort of hard, phase.
Yes, there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. I love that. And I'm going to credit you. You can take credit for that quote because I've never heard it before.
I have Google. I'm like, did I just make this? I know it's just 2 words, but did I make this up?
Yeah, it's yours. Claim it.
Okay, great. Thanks.
We'll put together a show notes page for you, Taran. So if anyone wants to go look at those, go to eatblogtalk.com/undomestic mom. I would love for you to tell everyone where they can find you and also tell us a little bit about your podcast.
Yes. Yeah. So the Undomestic Mom podcast is geared towards helping millennial moms carve out time for themselves in all areas of life. And I do that, again, through getting a little bit of paid help through whether that's a mother's helper, babysitter, talking with your spouse about balancing the household load, and then also just like taking things off of your plate and your calendar and not being someone who's constantly busy. And so I just like to talk on there about those different sectors and, pulling from each one to really find time in your day, in your week, in your month, in your year, that's all for you. And like I said, I like to work on my blog and my podcast during it, but whatever moms want to do with it, I like to give them ideas and advice and just validation. And then I'm also on Instagram, Undomestic Mom, where I do daily reels that are also about just kind of like inspiration, validation, advice on how to take that time for yourself and not feel guilty about it.
Oh my gosh. I think we can all raise our hands when we think that we need help with some of that. So everybody go check out Taran's page and her podcast. and be inspired. So thank you again, Taran, for being here. And thank you so much for listening today, food bloggers. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Eat Blog Talk. Please share this episode with a friend who would benefit from tuning in. I will see you next time.